All right, it's noon, so why don't we call the meeting to order? And Mr. Coley, would you note that we're all present? So you've all received the minutes of our August 18 meeting. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion, any corrections, any modifications? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Old business, we don't have any old business, but we do have some official action. So Gabe, let's talk about Resolution 1463.
Thank you, Chair Askew. I would like to recognize Mark Walker, our Senior Vice President and Chief Financial Officer, for your consideration of a second and final reading on a new EV electric vehicle rate for commercial customers.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. You will recall last month we did do a presentation on first reading for our new EBC rate. It does replace the existing EBC rate, charging station rate, that was adopted by the board last year. You may also recall TVA recently modified its wholesale EBC rate, and so we felt this was a good time to go ahead and update our schedule as well. So I'm just going to focus basically, since we gave a presentation last month, on really what's changing and try and keep it pretty high level. First, the rate that we charge has been a flat rate, kilowatt hour rate. It is now moving to vary to be an on-peak and off-peak rate. So the on-peak rate will be somewhat higher than the off-peak rate on that. So we're doing that for several reasons. One is it better aligns how we pay TVA, because we pay TVA for the cost of power that we sell to this customer on an on-peak, off-peak basis. Second, this is really considered a startup rate for a new charging station, and we eventually, once they get up and established and have a higher electric load, they need to transition to a general service time of use rate, which is on peak, off peak. So this prepares them for that as well, so they wouldn't be surprised when they get on that. And then finally, we designed it to be essentially cost neutral. We only have one customer on this rate right now, so we looked at their load profile. So when we made the on-peak and off-peak rates and ran the numbers, it's essentially cost neutral for them. It's not like their costs are going to go up, or they're not going to go significantly down either. As far as facilitating the transition to the GSA rate, in addition to the on-peak, off-peak rates, we've also reduced the term that they're required to be under this rate schedule. Currently, it is 12 months, so once you get on it, you have to stay on it 12 months before you would move to another rate schedule. That has been reduced to 90 days, so that will help facilitate the transition. And we do anticipate our one customer that is currently on this schedule will be transitioning to the GSA time of use rate in relatively short order. And then finally, there are some charges that were initially put into this rate schedule that are typically associated with our largest electric commercial and industrial customers, and really don't need to be on a customer of this size. So those are being eliminated from the rate schedule as well. So in summary, it does provide added flexibility for participating customers, and also it provides flexibility for KUB as well. And then again, it helps facilitate that transition, because again, eventually the most cost-effective rate schedule for them will be the GSA time of use rate.
I would also add that this, by moving to time of use and to on-peak, off-peak, we continue our effort to be environmentally responsible, to encourage.
That is correct.
To encourage people to help us be as sustainable as we can be.
Yes.
All right. Is there a motion on Resolution 1463 on second and final reading? So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak? Okay. Then Mr. Coley, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Askew.
Aye.
Commissioner Caballero.
Aye.
Commissioner Feinbaum. Aye. Commissioner Hamilton.
Aye.
Commissioner Herbert.
Aye.
Commissioner Simpson Brown.
Aye.
Commissioner Small.
Aye.
Resolution 1463 has passed on second read.
Thank you. Moving on. Gabe, would you like to talk about Resolution 1464?
Yes, I will. Thank you very much. Commissioners, I want to recognize Wayne Brittenall. He's our lead analyst in our Rates and Analytical Services Department. He will be discussing a new natural gas supply contract, which will supply a discount to our customers that are our gas customers for a long term. So Wayne, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bolus. Good afternoon, Commissioners. So we have an opportunity to participate in a natural gas transaction that is designed to save end-use customers quite a bit of money. So before we get into the details of that transaction, I think it would be a good idea to talk about how we purchase gas today. So the framework of how KUB purchases gas is really under Resolution 1387, and the predecessor to that was Resolution 960. And so the design and the framework of how we purchase gas has probably lasted, those resolutions have lasted us at least 20 plus more years. Otherwise, every time we purchase gas, we would have to meet with you every morning to discuss a transaction. So we do a variety of geographic, variety of suppliers, different layers of timing. So we have year-round contracts, we have summer only, winter only. We buy specifically to accommodate our storage assets. Some of our supply is done daily. So every morning that decision is made where we're going to buy gas for the next day. And that happens every day, 365 days a year. So the decision to purchase gas is not an uncommon thing for us. We are looking at a very long-term transaction that I'll get into in a minute. But the reason we're here before you today is to ask permission to go outside of the framework of Resolution 1387. So the fact that this transaction is a 30-year gas supply, it's beyond the 6 years of the framework that you provided for KUB to purchase gas today. So what is prepay gas? This is a term that the industry uses. It's pre-funded gas purchases. So KUB will not be putting any money up front. This is all done through the supplier, who is Tenergy. We do business with Tenergy today. We started gas flow with them in November of 21. This is a very, very common supply tool that is used to purchase gas for end-use distributors. And the point you'll see here is this is for retail burner tip customers. So what can be done with this gas is you can purchase it, and all the savings have to be passed to end-use customers. So what you cannot do with it is buy it at a discount and then turn around and resell it. That cannot be done. So when we looked around at our peers and neighbors and look at who is purchasing prepay gas, it was very difficult, and I don't think we did find anyone who was not purchasing prepay gas. So it's extremely, extremely common in the industry. How this works is it's the spread between taxable and tax-exempt bonds. So it's not how high or low the interest rates are necessarily, it's the spread between the two. And so when that happens, there's a trigger, and that trigger can happen very, very quickly. So we've got to be ready and to go whenever that trigger happens. So getting into the details of this specific transaction, this is a gas index minus 33 cents. So if the gas is $10, $5, $3, whatever it is, we will get a discount of 33 cents, and that is significant. If we go out to the day market, you might get plus or minus a penny or something of that nature to give you an idea of how substantial this discount is. This is for 2,800 decatherms a day, which is right at about 10% of our supply, is almost exactly the same volumetric that we are doing today with Tenergy. If the board so approves that we can engage in this transaction, the transaction we have already and add this one, would be a potential savings of over $20 million for our customers. And again, all of the savings have to be flowed through to our customers. So if approved, this resolution would authorize the CEO and CFO to engage in the contract for prepay. This contract has a 32-year financial term and again a 30-year gas flow term. The savings on the initial discount would be 33 cents to index, and these things reset every 5 to 7 years. And then the authority you would give would remain in place up until August 31st of 2023. So I'll take any questions you might have.
I do have a
Okay.
question. Go ahead, Tavy, I'm
No,
sorry.
you go first.
I guess you've talked about the volatility of this market. You say the authority to sign the contract expires August the 31st. I guess when I read this, it seemed like the contract had been presented and that we would be signing one in the near future. And this makes it sound like, well, we might sign one in the next year.
It's giving us the authorization, as Wayne mentioned, that conditions can change fast. So Tenergy is already putting partners together on this, and then when it's time to go, we need to move fast. So we're asking for your authorization to enter into the contract. As far as when the actual execution will take place, I'll defer to Wayne. I don't know as far as how fast Tenergy's ready to go on this.
So that's a good point. With the first transaction we did, we started talking to Tenergy in 2017, and we were very close in 2019, and then COVID. And so that sat for a while, and you'll remember we had to come back to get authority a couple times to continue to participate in that transaction. So that one lasted, 3 to 4 years. And then this one, I'm hearing that it might go to price as late September.
Okay.
I think you just answered my question. I was just gonna say that I thought we had done a similar transaction before, on a smaller nature.
For KUB, it's the same volumes.
Okay, okay,
This transaction, so the other transaction had about a dozen participants in it. And they shoot to price the bonds around $500 million to prepay. This one will be the same, around $500 million, but there's only 3 participants. They're just,
Okay.
the other 2 are taking more volumes.
okay. All right, thank you.
Tommy?
So, you asked, one of my questions. So my next question is, previously, the contract was up to 6 years, right?
KUB, the board has authorized KUB to engage in supply transactions up to 6
Up to
years.
6 years.
With that, you've already given us that authority.
That authority, but now we're asking for up to 32 years
For this one
for
specific.
this one specific.
Not
If we
not
go
any
into-
prepay, but just this one specific transaction.
With Tenergy.
Tenergy,
So if we
correct.
go into this contract, what if things change, markets change? How do we get out of this? Because 32 years, that's, 3 decades from now, things will be completely different than they are right now.
Thank you for asking that. That's a great question. I'm gonna give you 3 answers. So in this contract, there's provisions for the supply side. So what if the supply can't be delivered? And there's all kinds of force majeure, act of God, new technology, civil war, anything you can think of. And then you go to the demand side, so the buyers, what if they can't take the gas? So all those things I just mentioned. And then one thing that comes up common is, what if we don't have the ability to take 20% of our current load?
Right.
And so the way these transactions are designed, that's called a headroom calculation when the investors look at it. So they go and say, can KUB look at 30 years? Do you think they'll be able to take a minimum of 20% 30 years from now? And what that's designed to do is to look at maybe a smaller utility, and they've got one really big customer, and they've done prepay up to 90%. And so that one big customer leaves, and now they can't take that 90%. So that's really what that's designed for.
Another question. Could you go back one slide? One more, please.
Yeah.
So relies on favorable interest rate environment. Kind of going back to Tyvee's question. 32 years long period, right? Interest rates now are, obviously the highest they've been since, in a while. And it's up to 32 years. Do you kind of foresee signing a 10-year contract, a 12-year or do you feel that you're going to really, sign that longer term 32 or 30-year contract in an environment that, an interest rate and bond environment right now that is a little challenging?
Sure. So if you go back to 1992, 93, when the market was deregulated, a few years later, the gas industry figured out how to do these things. And that was the late 90s through the early 2000s. And back then, you could do a 20-year deal. And the interest rates that would work. And so here we are 20 years later, a lot of these things are starting to fall off. And so now we're going back, and as a gas industry, now it has to go to 30 years to make the transaction work. So every 5 to 7 years, the bonds will be repriced. If there's not a favorable spread that doesn't meet minimum requirements, then we're not obligated to take that gas for that period of time.
My question. Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? All right.
In terms of,
yes.
in terms of what our end user, our customer will see from this, what will our customer see from this?
This sounds like a lot of money, but when you spread it over 30 years, it's just a few pennies on the bill monthly. Yes, all the savings go to the customers.
Others? Tavi, you look like you're formulating one.
That last answer just.
If we're only saving a couple of pennies per customer, I guess, I might be in the same question. Why then enter in a 32-year contract if is it worth all the time going into it if it's only a couple of pennies, or is it, how does it impact? So who is it, when you went, there was one of these slides that you said was 20 million in savings over 30.
Between the
Right here,
two
yeah.
transactions.
Can you say that again? I'm sorry.
So we already have one in place that
Okay.
saves not quite $10 million, and this one will be just a little bit more than 10 million.
Okay, so together it would be that savings. But if it's only, I guess I'm still questioning if it's only a couple of pennies per client per month, what is this savings?
Well, I think, given the opportunity and whatever 338,000 times 12 is, so say that's maybe close to $4 million. If we have an opportunity to save our customers $4 million a year, then that is, and I don't know if I did the math
That
right
makes
there.
sense.
I know it's 338,000 annual savings, so I apologize. But if we have a chance to save $340,000 a year for our gas system customers, we think we should take advantage of that. You're right, once you break it down on a customer by customer basis, it's not that large, but it's still an opportunity to save for our customers, so.
That makes sense. I think it was just going back to the
Yeah,
question.
yeah.
Pennies.
To add on to that, I think it's back to the strategy of layering on different products, different geographic, different suppliers, looking at all the deals we do.
Yeah, thank you.
Hearing no more discussion, I'll entertain a motion and a second on 1464 on first and final reading.
Move to approve.
Move. Second. Are there any members of the public? Okay. Mr. Coley, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Askew,
Aye.
Commissioner Caballero,
Aye.
Commissioner Feinbaum.
Aye.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Aye.
Commissioner Herbert.
Aye.
Commissioner Simpson Brown.
Aye.
Commissioner Small.
Aye.
Resolution 1464 is passed.
Thank you, Wayne, for a good presentation. All right. Mr. Bolus, time for your report.
Yes, President's report. Yeah, Commissioners, as you know, we are very much committed to environmental stewardship in both our operations and programs we offer to our customers. I've asked Chastity Hobby, our lead environmental program analyst, to give you an update on some of the programs we're doing at KUB.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. So as Gabe mentioned, I'm going to give updates on a few of our environmental programs and also share some exciting news for a new project we're working on and a couple of other good things. So we will start with community solar, which has been moving along very quickly. So you all might recall that I was here a few months ago to talk about the details of our subscription program. And at that time, construction had just began. So if any of you all have driven by the site recently, you have seen that those few rows of panels that we had up at that time have now turned into a full field of panels. So Really neat to see kind of what that solar array looks like now that the panels are installed. The top photos on here show kind of a before and after of the site there at the City of Knoxville Public Works Complex. Our contractor worked very quickly, very efficiently to get those installed, and they'll continue working over the next couple of weeks and throughout the fall to finish up the final equipment installations and electrical connections that we need to get the site operational. We have had over 470 customers express interest in the program. Those have been primarily residential, and so that brings a lot of excitement to us just to see that we have that quantity of individuals that might be interested in participating in the program. We're still on track to launch this winter, so looking at kind of a December, January timeframe. And we've been providing those customers on the interest list with updates as construction has moved along, as subscription program details have become available. But in addition to that, our communications and marketing teams have been working on a full promotional plan to help kick off the program when it launches. So some of the things that we're looking to include in that plan will be a billboard. So heading westbound on the interstate, the billboard that we're looking at pursuing would be able to be visible from the site. So that'll be a really nice kind of visual thing to help go along with the field, so that as customers are driving and they see this array of solar panels, soon after, just past the panels, they'll be able to see, oh, that's KUB Community Solar. That's something that I can participate in. We're also working on a commercial, digital advertisements, social media, news releases, all of those kinds of things. And another thing that we're looking at doing later in the spring is a community celebration that would invite subscribers to participate in that and be able to see the solar array that they're participating in. So really kind of driving home that community aspect. So this has been a long time in the making, and super excited to be kind of nearing the finish line there. So next, we'll do an update on our weatherization programs. So this is something that KUB has dedicated a lot of effort and resource into over the years. We recognize that weatherization improvements can provide a long-lasting impact for customers, and that it can be a big help in helping reduce energy burden for the community. Weatherization improvements can help reduce energy consumption by 15% on average, but in some cases that can even be up to 50%. So not only is it helping improve their quality of life by providing them upgraded appliances, better lighting, better ceiling, but it can also have a huge impact on their utility bills as well. As of FY22, our weatherization programs have served over 2,100 customers. So just to put that into perspective, we've recently seen that some of our neighboring communities are celebrating milestones like their 600th home or their 700th home. And I think TVA is about to celebrate their 3,000th home for the Home Uplift program overall. So just to see that we've been able to help over 2,000 customers here in Knoxville alone is a huge impact, and really a testament to our commitment to helping provide energy efficiency for our customers and helping families in need.
Could I ask a question there? That 28.5 million has to include more than just weatherization.
That is just weatherization.
So it costs $129,000 a project?
120.
Maybe my math's off.
Yeah.
But, okay, so maybe 12,000.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
And those figures include the Knoxville Extreme Energy Makeover as well. So this has been
Right,
since 2015, and it's a variety of funding sources. So grants, TVA, Home Uplift funds, KUB funds, customer rounded up contributions. But yes, those are the funds that have been able to help achieve that 2,100 number. And we anticipate an ongoing commitment of approximately $2 million annually. So that would be KUB's budget contributions the TVA home uplift matches and the rounded up contributions. So that's enough to fund around 200 homes per year from that. Just to take kind of another look to put our funding into perspective with what we're seeing at other programs, KUB does have one of the highest weatherization funding amounts amongst the TVA Valley, Tennessee Valley utilities. So the chart on the right shows FY21 weatherization funding, and that's for all sources per electric customer. So you can see that our rate was more than double what the next highest rate was per customer. So we're just really, putting those dollars to try to help as many customers as we can and really maximize what we're able to do through that program. KUB's weatherization programs are funded by a variety of different sources. So like I mentioned, TVA Home Uplift provides match funds. We have our customer rounded up contributions. We have grant fundings that help. So this past year we've been working with the TDEC grant, but a big part of that is KUB's budget contributions. And just to kind of compare that to what we see, we recently saw a report from TVA's Home Uplift program, and based on those numbers, our budget contributions make up around 19% of total LPC contributions. So we've put a lot of effort into this and been able to help a lot of customers, and we're looking forward to being able to continue that work and keep helping customers in need. Okay, so we will move on to the community-centered growth pilot. This is another energy efficiency effort that we've been participating in. It's a TVA pilot program that provides energy upgrades for small businesses in disadvantaged communities. So last year, KUB helped recruit 11 businesses in the East Knoxville community to participate in this pilot. And over the past year, TVA's contractor has been working with those businesses to identify improvements and install those improvements. It's funded by TVA, and some of the improvements that they've provided have been things like LED lighting, appliance replacements like HVAC, hot water heaters, and even things like kitchen appliances like new refrigerators, freezers, and ovens. And those kinds of improvements for businesses that may have a kitchen. What's been really great about this program is that they've taken a very holistic approach to helping these businesses, and even sometimes expanding beyond the scope of energy efficiency. So for example, one of our customers, TVA went in and found that they needed new LED lighting, but they had a very severe roof leaking problem to the point that I think they had like a swimming pool, a little baby pool, catching water. And so even though that was not directly related to the energy efficiency improvements, they were able to fund the roof replacement from this program. So it's for TVA, that's been an investment of over $725,000. They have most of the improvements complete and are working to finish up the final projects this month. And they've estimated that for the improvements they've done so far, that'll be over 100,000 kilowatt hours in annual energy savings, which equates to 57,000 pounds of carbon reduction. So not only is it a great benefit on kind of the energy conservation side of things, but it also provides these businesses with improvements that they would have not otherwise been able to afford. So we've been really thankful for the opportunity to participate in this pilot, and we hope that as TVA is kind of evaluating the pilot phase, they'll see that value as well and look for additional opportunities to provide these types of updates.
I have a question.
Yeah.
When would you know if they're going to continue with the program? Or how long does it take for them to evaluate that?
So KUB was in kind of their second phase of pilot programs. They originally started with at least 2 other communities before us, And I think that their goal is to kind of make their way around the valley and pilot this at as many different LPCs as they can before they figure out, what kind of program it could turn into.
Also, I know most of the organizations, many of the organizations on that list, and they all do phenomenal work in our community. And I am enthused that we could support them in that way. And moving forward, I would highly encourage TVA to continue with this endeavor. And if not, I wonder what we might be able to do internally with something like this, because I do think that it certainly benefits all of our communities. And these are really, really staples, big staples in our community that I think help lift all of our communities. So if they don't, I'd be open to a conversation with what we could do internally.
Yeah, if we could keep tabs on it, I know you will, but I mean, if we can kind of get like a little nudge as to when they are going to, finalize it and let us know an update on it.
Yeah, that's definitely something we can follow. And for this program, they're wrapping it up this month, and so we'll have some additional detailed information to share about what those final energy savings look like and, the specific improvements that they've been able to do. So,
What was the term of that program, the longevity of it?
So we recruited the businesses last fall, so they've been able to complete this over the span of a year. All right, so we will switch gears a little bit to alternative fuels and to our fleet. So as you all know, we do a lot to promote alternative fuel vehicles in our community, and that also translates to within our own fleet. So earlier this year, you guys were presented with a fleet modernization plan, which aims to improve resiliency of our fleet and also reduce emissions. So our transportation department is currently working through that plan, looking at opportunities to purchase alternative fuel vehicles, develop replacement cycles, and look at efficiency measures such as like vehicle sharing and carpools, that kind of thing that can help make sure that we're utilizing our fleet as efficiently as possible and utilizing the types of vehicles that we need and reducing emissions where we can. So currently our light duty fleet is around 39% alternative fuels. That consists of CNG vehicles, hybrid electric, we have an electric vehicle as well, and then some flex fuel. And by FY30, the goal is that we would increase that to 70% alternative fuels within our fleet. And that would be done by essentially evaluating based on the vehicle performance, what type of vehicle we can substitute in there and what those opportunities are. So we are excited to be kind of working down this goal. We've seen a lot of our peers develop similar types of goals and start looking at how can we tackle this and how can we strategically plan for it. So this is a great thing that we're going to be working on as well. In addition to our own fleet, we do a lot of efforts to support EV adoption in our community. Here coming up soon, we will be starting a new project to install fast chargers in our community. So this is part of a TVA and TDEC program where they announced a partnership to fund electric vehicle fast charging stations every 50 miles along major travel corridors. The goal of that program is to help eliminate range anxiety. So fast chargers are the kind of the highest level of commercial charging. They can charge your vehicle, from 15 to 30 minutes. And having those spread along those major travel corridors, they will help drivers be more comfortable that they can get from point A to point B. So in that way, it just kind of helps support the community in making that switch to an electric vehicle. For this program, they will provide up to 80% of funding for fast charging stations, with the owners to match that 20%. LPCs will be installing and owning and maintaining the stations for the life of that program. And so far, TBA and TDEC have had approximately 70 projects submitted, and that's all across the Tennessee Valley. So they're working well towards that kind of 50-mile interval goal. KUB submitted 2 projects. We submitted 4 projects and were approved to pursue 2 of these projects. So we're looking at the downtown Central Avenue kind of area. If you guys are familiar with State Street, there's some parallel parking kind of right down there at the bottom of the hill. We're partnering with the city of Knoxville on that location. They have been very interested in trying to get a DC fast charger downtown for several years now, and so we were really excited when this opportunity came about that we could partner with them on that. And they're going to be helping not only provide the location, but they're also helping to provide the funding match for the program. The second location that we were encouraged to pursue is the Seymour location, so right kind of at the intersection of 411 and 441. And we're currently in discussions with site hosts about that area and seeing where we'll be able to locate. So these projects are estimated to take around 10 months. Kind of depends on what equipment procurement looks like and how long it takes to get in all the transformers and the charging equipment and that kind of thing. But once they are operational, they'll be available for public use. And then last, another little bit of good news. We were recently recognized by APGA, American Public Gas Association, for their Excellence in Environmental Sustainability Award. So this is the first year that that award has been given, and it's meant to recognize APGA members who demonstrate commitment to environmental stewardship. As a natural gas distributor, our goal is to meet the needs of our customers while providing safe and reliable gas. We do a lot of things to help promote safety on our system, which also minimizes leaks and reduces emissions. So some of the things that we're being recognized for that award include our enhanced leak detection and replacement programs to help reduce higher risk types of component and equipment. Our third-party damage prevention efforts, those are actually our top cause of leaks, and we do a lot of public awareness and damage prevention to help minimize those and educate contractors and the public on how they can help prevent dig-ins. We also participate in challenges like the methane challenge, which is a voluntary effort where companies can volunteer to make improvements towards certain categories of operations. And then also things just like evaluating new technology options that can help minimize emissions and low carbon energy sources such as RNG. So we're super excited to be recognized for our sustainability efforts on the gas side of things. It really goes to show just that we're taking kind of that holistic approach to looking at how can we be more sustainable in our community, how can we be more sustainable in our operations, and how can we provide the best service possible for Knoxville. Okay.
Thank you, Chastity. That's all good news. That's all good news. Thank you. All right.
All right, so commissioners, you all have seen the news, the sad news that's come out of Jackson, Mississippi. Shocking news to some degree. And the lack of drinking water, just one of the basic needs of the folks down there. We've had a lot of questions, obviously, coming to us about what are we doing, how do we prevent this, what are the programs we have in place, and I thought it was a great opportunity to present that to you all, update you on what you all have been approving for many years in some cases. And so I've asked John Williams, Senior Vice President of Engineering and Operations, Construction, to give you a quick update on the water quality and water programs we have at KUB.
Thanks, Gabe. Good afternoon. As Gabe mentioned, timing was good for this. It wasn't a presentation that was planned on the agenda, but hopefully today we can provide some reassurance around our water system and our water quality and the good work that our folks do every day. But because of the unfortunate events surrounding the water system in Jackson, Mississippi, and the national attention that it has drawn, it is good to kind of reassure folks of where we stand in Knoxville. This isn't really anything new, unfortunately. If you recall, about 18 months ago, we talked about several slides that you'll see recycled in here, actually. But one of those was on the left with some news clips from the cold snap that hit the South unseasonably, that hit Shreveport, parts of Texas, and also Jackson, Mississippi. This hit the electric system in those areas, but also the water system, if you'll recall. And so now, fast forward 18 months later, unfortunately, some of those same communities are still in a bit of a crisis mode with their systems. But I don't want to spend too much time on one particular community, because this is really a national issue. You'll recall seeing this slide back about 18 months ago as well. The American Society of Civil Engineers does a study every couple of years on the nation's infrastructure, bridges, airports, and utilities, among other important components. And the nation's infrastructure for utilities has kind of hovered around those grades for a while. They've improved a little bit in some areas, but the drinking water infrastructure grade nationally is about a C-, which is not really something you want to see. Certainly something that we're not proud of nationally. And there's several things, if you recall, that are really central around making sure that utilities get past this and overcome this challenge. One is it's a long-term, complex planning process. All infrastructures, whether it's a bridge or an airport or utilities, long-life assets require a lot of planning, a lot of diligence, and a lot of good thinking to get ahead of that. The second component, which is also very important, is it takes a lot of money, and none of these assets are cheap. Requires a lot of funding. And then the third piece, which may be the secret sauce to it all, is it requires a belief that's a priority for your community, and it requires a bit of a courageous commitment to see it through and to push that funding through, because that's not always easy. And fortunately, our board positioned KUB really well with our Century 2 program following PACE 10. There was some really smart people at KUB that once we got the board vision for that and the funding for that, like Julie Childers sitting over there. Gabe's going to brag on her in a minute. I'm just going to beat him to it. But folks like Julie really kind of helped set the direction for Century 2 by building comprehensive plans, life cycle asset planning, and over that time, those programs, the way we go about our thinking and our work has evolved. We've got cross-functional, multidiscipline teams now stewarding our systems and looking through that, working really well together. And then our technology and just the experience of our people has evolved significantly during this period of time. And over these past 15 years, we've invested over $325 million in our water system infrastructure, which is something we can be proud of. And by the numbers, it's shifted the age of our system in a positive direction. When we began, we were about 50-50, old and new pipe types. You'll recall seeing a lot of these charts over the years. We're proud to say that we've moved that about 15% to over 65% newer pipe during that period of time, which is exactly what we wanted to do. We have about a 1% annual replacement cycle, so 1% over 15 years should equal 15%. So it's working like it should. And then, not only did they target the oldest pipe, but also the pipe that was giving us the most problems from a leak or a break perspective, like the galvanized pipe that's there in red. As you can see, as that pipe was replaced with newer pipe, the leak repair rates have gone down over 50%. So it's doing what it's supposed to do, and we're really proud of that, and I think it's safeguarded our water system.
Hey, John.
Yes.
Once we get the right now, the newer pipe is is it considered the plastic? Is that what I'm saying?
Ductile iron, plastic. It's a combination of. Yes.
So once we get most of the older pipe out, that galvanized is what I think it is, right?
Some of it, cement as well.
And
yes.
Cement. Then do we then start to replace some of the other piping with some of the newer materials?
Do. So the great news, I'm glad you asked the question. So the great news is we're 15% in. I guess the rest of the story is where we got 85% to go. So, and that's just a constant renewal, assuming that it'll last about 100 years. And so it's a continuous cycle, and hence kind of the tagline for Century 2 is just investing in that next century of our utility assets. There's another slide that, had I had more time, I'd put it in there because it's an interesting slide that shows the installation of pipe over time. And you can do the same thing with all of our utilities that, you know, you've got 70s, 80s, 90s, a lot of growth curves. So that's going to be coming ahead. So certainly that over time is important that we continue to look at what's the next oldest and most priority from a system. Yeah, great question. You've also saw this slide back in April about how we continue to want to invest in our water plants and our water supply master plan. Really the purpose of this slide is not to go into the details here, but really kind of make 2 points. One is this program to really provide resiliency to our water plant is 15 years, if everything goes as scheduled, and nearly $150 million, which just kind of reaffirms the notion that what you do in the utility industry is long-term and it costs a lot of money. But this is the right thing, and if you'll recall, along with this, Mark presented really a balanced plan from a rate perspective, a debt perspective, and also a modest reduction in some of that distribution system pipe replacement during this period of time, so that we can have a balanced approach where we can maintain affordability to our customers while we're doing this. Along the way, a lot of maintenance activities go on, a lot of hands and feet in the field every day, working our valves, making sure they're operational, flowing our hydrants, just doing a lot of good work on our system to make sure it's performing like we intend and that the water quality is where it needs to be. And then obviously, you know, we're very proud of our lab. We've got a lot of sophisticated equipment. We can test certain substances in the parts per billion level, but it's really our people that set us apart. Their passion, their energy around water quality, all the work they do every day to assure that is pretty phenomenal. And so I think we can be really proud of the work that they do to protect our source water, protect the actual water quality that our customers experience every day. Yes, ma'am?
I saw a hydrant and this is the first time I've ever seen this, that had a plastic cover over it. Does that mean it's not functional? And is that something that we go around and check and then we put a cover on it until we get it repaired?
Repair to replace, yes, ma'am. Yeah, that's routine. I forget the frequency. Is it 3 years?
Every 3 years.
We get around the system every 3 years to test the hydrants and make sure that they're flowing the pressure that they need from a fire protection perspective. And there's a lot of things we look at to make sure that we can provide fire protection to our community.
And I'll add to that, when that does happen, we notify the fire department, so they say, hey, this one hydrant's out of service till we fix it. So hence, we tell them ahead of time, we can put a bag over it so they don't try to use it. So we try to get there pretty quick to change it out. It may be a broken valve, a broken stem, something easy to fix, but we don't have it. We'll get it fixed pretty quickly. It shouldn't last very long, that bag, but that's really coordinated between us and the fire departments to make sure that.
I've never seen that.
Yeah, it's very rare. They do last for a long time, but something eventually, if we got there and tested, it doesn't work perfectly, we may change out the whole hydrant, make a brand new one out of it, so.
Yep. Good question. And then one last point, you know, I think that because of the work that the board has done in years past with Century 2, the funding, you know, we can be proud that, you know, not only do we have really good water quality, but it's recognized at a national level. And then as Chassie talked about from an environmental perspective, the work that our folks have done with our source water and other things along the way has put us in a position to get some national environmental awards as well. So I think we can be really proud. One thing I'll mention, and I talked a lot about, it costs a lot of money, and it really does, but when you think about the value of water, a good way of thinking about it is this. Each day, our residential customers use over 100 gallons of water, and that costs them less than $1, about 92 cents a day for water. If you think about that in terms of what the folks in Jackson and other places are experiencing with no water or boiled water, it's a pretty remarkable value. And I can't really think off the top of my head a lot of places you can go and buy any volume of liquid for that price, certainly not for a day. So I think that despite the cost involved in the $325 million over 15 years, when you think about it on a daily basis, I think the value is pretty remarkable for the product that we deliver. At least I think our folks do a great job trying to do that every day. Appreciate your time.
That's a great talking
Yeah,
point for all
glad
of us. Your water accounting, dishwashing, showering, everything. $1, less than $1 a day. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pretty amazing.
Yes, ma'am?
Do we have, you showed at the very beginning of your presentation, the nationwide report card.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a corollary to that applies on a state or local level that we have a report card on?
I've not seen one for on a state-by-state basis. I will say, the time this came out, Tennessee, it wasn't directly related, but there was a number that came out of the state around that time where they mentioned there was around $16 billion is what was needed to improve the state of Tennessee's water infrastructure. So I think, I'm not sure how that would relate. I think it's really hard to compare. It's certainly different on a state-by-state basis, and some areas have infrastructure issues, and as you know, some areas have supply issues with just having access to water, which we're blessed to have in our area, but some areas don't have that. So I think it probably fluctuates quite a bit. I'll look and see if I can find something.
Yeah, when you look at not our area of concern, how would you rate our system compared to the C- that's nationwide?
That's a good question. Grading it better, start with better, right? We're ahead of the curve, 15 years at least ahead of the curve. I think we're in good shape. At the same time, we're not immune. We have aging pipes and assets as well. It's always a balance. We could have we could spend a whole lot of money and have a perfect system, but then our customers couldn't afford it. And so it's a good balancing act. I think Commissioner Small kind of pointed out the issue. It's a 100-year game, and so we're trying to balance that over time. I think we are positioned really well compared to our peers, but I wouldn't want to give anybody the illusion that we're perfect or immune to any issues, because we certainly work hard and are prepared for things that happen, and we maintain our system every day, mostly try to proactively, but we'll have a main break today probably, and we'll go out there and do our best to respond it and get it cleaned up and roads paved again and things back in the way. But it's a constant struggle, and that's why I'll brag on Julie again. So we have smart people like Julie and our folks out in the field every day that help us stay ahead of it as much as possible.
I've lived here since 1974 when I came here to UT, and I never recall a time that we've had to boil water
Now,
to
I'm
be
gonna
able
knock
to
on
use.
something, yeah.
Wish you hadn't said
Had
that.
you said that, not me, yeah. Yes.
Well, I think the difference is that there is a process in place, so that if something happens, then you know how to fix it. And it sounds like these other cities, unfortunately, don't even have, just a plain plan or the support to obtain the funding for it.
Yes.
Which is very unfortunate that and they've known it for years.
Yes.
So, and I know it took the law or a decree or something for it to happen here, but, in hindsight, it's sort of like a blessing in disguise. A lot of pain went through it, and I know I've heard it from when I first started, but I'm thankful that we've been on the other side of it, I guess that's what I'm saying.
I think it's good to note that I'm not saying this just because you're all here, I'd say it if you weren't, but I think we're blessed to have had boards in place, past and present, that understand the importance of infrastructure and on the community, and I think that's what it takes, and unfortunately not every community's had that leadership to be able to put them in the position to do that, and even once you decide on it, you still feel like you're trying to play catch up, and so having started it over 15 years ago just puts us in a good position.
I just want to congratulate you guys. I think for me, when I began on the board, one of the places of the work that we all do that impressed me the most was water, especially because coming from Honduras, I grew up until I was like 26, where you can't drink the water, you can't, you have to boil it or you buy it purified. And so I've never taken it for granted, because it's something that when we come to the States is it's very much of a privilege. And so seeing what happens in other parts of the country right now in the news just really reminds me why this is you know, when you live with it all the time and it's just so basic, it's like, of course I drink the water, but, yeah, I'm just really, really proud of this particular, of all of the work we do. This one's particular to me because I know what it's like without it. So, I appreciate the investment we make, and I'm also geeked out at the lab when I got the tour of all of that.
Awesome.
Because it was just really interesting, you know, and so important as we grow to make sure that we have in-house labs to make sure that we have safe water for everyone. So I love this project, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I think, I know y'all are very good about giving credit to the board, and I know the board does have to make decisions, but it's because of the leadership you guys bring to the table that encourage us, convince us, present the data that shows that we need to take action. And without that kind of leadership, frankly, as citizens, we wouldn't be able to make these decisions. We wouldn't know enough about it. So thank you for your leadership, Gabe, and that of your team.
And
Which-
also for educating us too.
Yeah.
So that we can go out and when people ask questions, we can explain it in layman's terms.
Yep.
Exactly.
Well, I want to take the last thing here real quick before we turn it back over to the board. So John mentioned Julie Childers, and she's sitting there in the rust red colored jacket there. She has decided it's time to retire. So after 35 years at KUB, a mentor to me personally, I want to say a few words about her. She actually came over to us from the city. So when we acquired the city wastewater system, employees came with that. And Julie was one of those employees. So she has actually started with the city of Knoxville and then came to KUB in '88 as an employee of ours and has been here almost entirely the time in our water wastewater division. And we have worked together personally for 26 years of those. When we first came together in '96, you know, we were teaching each other. I was teaching her electric. She taught me wastewater and water, the terminology, the language, the vernacular, the importance of each other. And over those years, we've worked pretty closely. In fact, in 2001, when I was named manager, she was my key supervisor, worked for me for years as a supervisor. 2006, she was promoted to vice president, so I worked for her directly as an employee. 2016, I got promoted over her again, and we worked back. So we have literally leapfrogged each other 4 times in this career, and it's been awesome because nothing changed. She's still the expert in all what she does. In fact, her title is Vice President of Century 2 Programs and Minister of Century 2 Programs. So she is the person who puts all this stuff together behind the scenes, all the data, all the reasons we're doing this, the education that we all get. She's been a tremendous part of that and been a good friend of mine for many years. You know, I don't know that she did this intentionally, but I think she wanted to get the EPA consent decree behind her before she announced. I don't think that's the case, but I'm going to give it, and so that's now officially behind us. And she's going to look forward to her retirement and keeping in touch with us for years to come. So thank you, Julie, personally, for what you've done for me, for KUB, for our citizens, for our customers. We're going to miss you a whole lot, but I'm also looking forward to hearing all the stories about travels and trips and that other side, they say, when you get past that point of work. So thank you for all you've done and appreciate you a lot.
Julie, I know I rarely speak for this group, but I know I can speak. They may also want to speak, but you're the epitome of what we say when we say the people make the difference. What makes KUB so special is the people, the professionals, the people who commit their lives to it, and you've been a standard bearer for us. We'll miss your presentations, so thank you for all you've done. All right. Commissioner Herbert, would you like to give us a nominating committee report?
I will. Keep forgetting to turn this on. I've got a big mouth, so I don't ever think about that. The nominating committee received 27 applications for the commissioner term beginning in January. The next step is for the committee to conduct interviews, and those are tentatively scheduled for next week, September 22nd and 23rd. Pursuant to the city charter, at least 5 candidates will be submitted to the mayor, and we will nominate those candidates at next month's meeting.
And those interviews are absolutely spellbinding, and any of you who would like to come and join us for these meetings are welcome. All right. Are there any members of the public who signed up to speak? Okay. In that case, we will adjourn this meeting. I'll remind everybody that following the adjournment of the meeting, the board will have lunch across the hall, and that session is open for the public to observe. This meeting